Great Scott! You're listening to the Growth Time Machine with Daniel Curtis. Don't forget to follow. Your future depends on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Growth Time Machine. I'm Daniel Curtis, and today I have Dr. Thaddeus Jones with me. I'm delighted to have you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's my privilege. Now, where in the world are you coming from today?
I am in South Carolina. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, to be exact. So,
so the Carolinas. I was speaking to somebody else the other day from the Carolinas. It's a very popular place on this podcast, but I'm delighted to have you.
Happy to be here. I don't know how popular it is, but it's becoming more popular. I guess as people retire, they're coming to relax. So
love that. Love the thought of it. So, my first big question to you goes a little bit like this. What was your first idea of a job that you ever had?
Wow. Never had that one. Okay, my first idea of a job that I ever had, I think I wanted to be an FBI agent. I wanted to go into law enforcement in some way. My father was in the military. And so that was kind of the first inkling of something that I thought that I would want to do, with FBI or CIA or something like that.
Love that. So you've got that kind of family connection to, obviously, the military. Did you used to watch John McClane or anything and Die Hard as a kid? Because,
all the time, man. That was one of my favorites. Still one of my favorites. It's totally a Christmas movie, by the way. So yeah, it was one of my favorites. I grew up on the Dragnet, Car 54, Where Are You? All the late night Nickelodeon, Nick at Night stuff. The original Mission Impossible and those kind of shows. So I always had a kind of proclivity for that. Didn't really realize what I was drawn to about those things. Turns out it was something other than the law enforcement aspect. But the initial thing was like, yeah, I'm gonna be in law enforcement or some kind of secret agent kind of thing.
Love that. So you went from that idea. What was the first kind of real job that you ever had?
Ooh, my first real job where I had to punch a clock for anyone was washing dishes at a Red Roof Pizza Hut. Okay. And so that was the first job. I hated it so much. Just something about the texture of wet dough and food. And then you're covered, I hated that job so much.
I get it. But it taught you something about hard work, I'm sure. Even back
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I ended up washing dishes at McDonald's for a long time as well, too. So it just was like one of those things you just get used to. And then it was like, okay, that's kind of the first inkling of how do I become more efficient at something? Because that opened up the door for like, okay, I don't want to be washing dishes till midnight and when we close. Like, how do I become more efficient at this so that I'm done when everybody else is done, or I'm done before everybody else is done? And some of the caveats with that was like the timing of things. I needed to be proactive in securing the things that needed to be washed and broke down and taken apart and sanitized. And some of those things gave me the opportunity to think about processes, even though I didn't know it at the time. It opened up a door in my mind. It was like, okay, this doesn't make sense to do it this way. If I wait for everybody else to decide that they're finished, their work is done, and I'm still working because they dragged their feet. How do I make it more beneficial for me so that I can be more productive? And so I didn't think about it in those terms at that time. All I just knew is that I wanted to go home. I wanted to leave. So
I get it. But that's an incredible attitude. Not many people have that attitude. But I was speaking to a wonderful rugby player from New Zealand called Sean Fitzpatrick. He was the captain of the New Zealand team. At the time, he's not anymore. The man is retired and enjoying his life in all other forms. But he told me about something in New Zealand, a term that they use called play where your feet are. And that means whatever you are doing, if you are at work, you give everything you've got to it. No questions asked. You put everything in. If you're at home with your family, you give everything to your family. If you're with your friends, you give everything there. No distractions, no going off topic, no going, you are focused. It sounds a little bit like you played where your feet are and learned some really good stuff along the way.
Absolutely. That's something similar to what, I learned growing up, is that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so the idea is that, the intensity, the integrity, the all the skill set that you have, you apply that to wherever you are, and that will translate into other things as you grow, as you change. That intensity follows. It's the reason that you are willing to do the research, because you know that it's necessary. So just because the task may seem menial or may seem small in the moment doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually small. It's training into you the mentality of, I need to give this my full attention. I need to give this my full skill set, and I need to be present in the moment. And a lot of times I find that people tend to not be present in things that are uncomfortable. If they're not really wanting to do a thing, they try to use everything they can to zone out and not be present in the moment. And that's cheating you of the ability to take what you're learning in that moment and really upload it into your software and have it be a program that runs in the background continuously of how I approach tasks, how I approach different things. And so, yeah, that's absolutely, I would agree that, what is it? Play where your feet are. That's play where your feet.
Play where your feet
are at.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree.
It's interesting, obviously, that you have this great attitude and ethic towards work, which we're going to come to in a moment. But how big an influence was your dad on you?
So it's complicated. My dad was, so for the first 8 years, we grew up on a military installation. I have siblings, and so he was very present, but my parents split when I was 8. And so then it became the missing piece of what I needed to become a young adult, a young man. And for a long time, I did things that were I wanted to be anything but like my father. And that was the resentment. That was there was a lot of complicated adult things going on that I didn't understand at the time. And my mother, to her testament, she never badmouthed him or anything like that. She would just say, it's you are the best thing that we've done, and you and your brothers and sisters are the best thing that we've done, but you can't be responsible for another adult. You can't be responsible. It's not your job to make these right. Because I always felt like, for me, and this is one of the things he instilled, is you take care of your mother, take care of your sister. And so I always felt like there was something I should have been able to do. And then I was always a kid that was bringing home strays. I was the person that If I had a friend, which is a real story, I had a friend that parents were, while we were living on the Air Force Base, they went away for a weekend and left their kids at home. And I was just like, that's not right. So I took it upon myself to bring them to the house. And my father at the time is a sergeant on there, so he had to report it. And so it became this whole thing. But to me, it was just like, oh, your parents should be home. Like, you should not be like fending for yourself. So it became this moral compass for me. So that is one thing that I will say that definitely I have taken from my father, is this sense of a moral compass of a clear right and wrong.
It's interesting. You are the only person that I've ever spoken to who has articulated what I often say, which is my idea was to try and do the opposite of my father. That was how I decided to be a parent. That if I could do the exact opposite, then maybe I was doing an okay job, you know? You're a movie person. You know, there's a line, isn't there, in Superman? The son becomes the father, and the father the son.
Yes.
And I wanted that not to happen.
Yeah.
That is something that I understand.
The incredible part of that is it's inevitable. No matter how hard you try, there will be a cross. And I see that now that my father and I, we have repaired our relationship to a certain extent, right? And what I see now is that there are many adult things happening. There are many complications there. It's always more complicated than you think that in an adult relationship. And you understand, I have made so many of the same mistakes that my father made, even though he wasn't there when those mistakes were being made. And you're going, crap, I did everything I could possibly do not to make this mistake, and I'm making that mistake. And it's one of those hard things to deal with, that you have to take a step back and go, let me reevaluate how I deal with these situations.
It's a beautiful outlook, and I completely agree. So we had a upbringing that many people don't have. Obviously, on a military base, you had a tendency to look after people, which I think is lovely. And, you know, that is a trait that, you know, if anybody has, I deeply admire. I think if you look after the person next to you, you're doing a good job, you know, and that's something I really try and instill. Then, obviously, we went through those stages from the FBI agent into the, obviously, working in kind of food and beverage type establishments, but developing a work ethic and a standard that somehow connects to where you went. And how did you get from that to the incredible things that you've done?
I think it started with Gifted and Talented. So once I was introduced to, well, I will say a little before that, I was into drama. And so I did a couple sports, but it just always was not like, I wasn't the fastest. I definitely wasn't the tallest. Basketball, everybody wanted me to play football. And I was just like, okay, I could play football, but like the pain of football, the pain of banging your head. And I was, for lack of a better word, I thought I was like, too intelligent. I didn't want to bust my head up. And even back then, even pre CTE, I just knew that could not be good. Running into each other full speed was not a thing. So I got into drama, and then drama led me into VHS, right, tapes and movies and studying that. And then Gifted and Talented actually put a camera in my hand and said, let's make a time capsule movie. And so once I did that, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. I need to figure out more of this. And that led me to photography. And so during high school, I was a photographer's assistant. And that led me to learning how to develop film, understanding lighting for photography. Again, I didn't realize I was learning how to be a filmmaker at the moment. Digital wasn't a thing. Digital filmmaking wasn't a thing. And I just knew that I wanted to do something in this creative space. And so I told my mom and my dad that I wanted to be a filmmaker, and they were just like, "Yeah, we're not paying for that. You can go to school to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or something in those realms, but we're not paying for film school." And so I had a little partial biology scholarship, and I thought, okay, well, I'll do criminal psychology or criminal forensics or something like that. And so for the first year out of high school, I went and was a criminal justice major, but I was miserable. I made the dean's list. I did what I was supposed to do, but I was miserable. And my grandmother told me, listen, go to school, do this, and then you can pursue this other thing in your spare time. Like have a solid plan to fall back on. And so I was trying to honor that. Me and my grandmother were really close. And during my break from school, she passed away. And so I hitchhiked. I didn't know she had passed, but I hitchhiked to New York when I got the call from my father that she was sick. And, my mother could only afford for her to go, and like from the kids, her kids are grown and older at the time, to stay put, and she would call or send for us if she needed. But that wasn't an option for me. I was not going to sit by the phone and wait. So I hitchhiked to New York from South Carolina, and I got into a nor'easter. And I got stuck in like the backside of DC with a truck driver. And so, I finally made it to New York. It was probably 3 or 4 in the morning. I knew my way around. I'd been to New York. I'd have friends there. And a friend of mine, I walked to his house from where the truck driver let us out. And it was like 4 in the morning. And he was like, listen, we can't go to the hospital now. Visiting hours are over. I'll take you first thing. And so, I didn't get much sleep. It got him up early, and he told me my mom was already there, and he took me to where my mom was. But it come to find out that my grandmother had passed while I was stuck in DC. And I just blacked out. From that moment on, I did not want to leave New York. I didn't want to go back to school. I didn't want to do anything. And so for the next 10 years, I dropped out of college. And I did a lot of different odds and end jobs. I worked as an animal care technician on a monkey farm. I went to Job Corps. I painted motorcycles. I waited tables. I did a lot of art. I was selling call waiting on a telemarketer. I was the guy that called and interrupted your dinner to sell you call waiting before it was a thing. And, lots of things happened in between, and because I just couldn't reconcile it. I was devastated for about 10 years. And during that time, I made all the mistakes you could think about. I mean, I was in lots of turmoil because, the person that I thought that I was going to school for and making this decision for was no longer there, and I didn't care about anything else. And it took a long time for me to work through that grief. It took a decade before something else came along and made me realize I needed to straighten up and course correct. And when I did, I knew that it was the birth of my son. I knew that I would feel like a hypocrite to tell him that to chase his dreams, that he could be whatever he wanted to be, that the world was his oyster. All he had to do was apply himself if I had not done the same. And so that was the hardest decision for me to be able to not be a hypocrite, to 10 years post go back to college with kids that are 10 years younger than me taking these classes and trying to, if I was going to pay for it, if I was going to take the loans for it, I was going to be a filmmaker. And that's how I ended up back in school trying to do this.
My grandfather, he was my hero. I was raised by my grandparents, and I remember being in Florida, and I got a call. He was very sick, and the closest I can get to the experience that you went through there is I remember just trying desperately to get home, and it was a 9-hour flight, 4 hours then from the airport, and I got there, and he lived for a few months, and it was terrible in terms of the way he was treated. I'm so grateful I got to see him, but that trauma there of him slipping away and seeing the person that I adored suffer so much broke me in ways, there's a quote from Rocky now, kind of broke me in ways that I ain't ever recovered from, deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I get it.
Absolutely.
I get it.
Yeah, that trauma broke me in several ways. Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously, you then decided, because your son came along and you didn't want to be a hypocrite, right? You wanted to show that dreams, can happen. That if you pursue things, you wanted to instill that in him so he could have a better life. He could have a life that he aspired to.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that when you're doing something and you're really feeling it, there's a moment where seeing other people doing the things that you want to do impacts you. And at the time he was born, I was working at a movie gallery, and I studied films. I was a manager, and people would come in and talk to me about their movie selections. Oh, have you seen this? And I got to have that feeling that I was great at something, that I was really good at, and I could be great at this. But then I would go home and, count my pennies for formula. And it started to convict me like that to the point where I was ashamed that I hadn't done more with my life, that I was feeling like the biggest hypocrite in the world, because I'm going to teach my son that he can go off and you're going to say these things. You can do it. I believe in you. And they're going to say to you, well, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you believe in yourself and go and do these things? The things that you could be great at. And that started to echo in me. And I just knew that if I was ever going to break the chain, and going back to my father of doing the thing, to be the opposite, right? To not settle. My father joined the Air Force at 17 because I was being born. And that felt like to me that at the time that he settled in, like he's a very smart man. He could have done or been anything, had he put his mind to it. And I felt like he settled because this is what he thought would be the best answer to the situation. And so I did not want to settle. I could have settled in as a plant worker or a manager at a McDonald's or a manager at some other establishment. But I had a couple things going for me in the fact that my kid was being born and I don't like being told what to do. At the time, I had a proclivity to I can figure it out better than you can. So why would I trust my life to your judgment? And that's how I decided. I was like, okay, I got to. And there were tons of other people that were put in my way to help me on this journey, but that's how it happened. That's how it started.
So, what is your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of, oh my goodness, this is Halloween. It's a great. I love that movie. I break it down for my students all the time because it's saying so much without being preachy, and so. Well, you know, my students go, well, it's just a slasher movie. I was like, hold on. It's not just a slasher movie. Okay. This movie is about what we call the fear of the other. And when I start pulling the onion layers back, it's like there's very few adults in this film, right? It's based on the fear of what your children are going to come up against. It's in the suburbs, so it's away from the inner city. Right. It's all of these little pieces. And I watch that movie probably 15, 16 times a year. Easy. It's just, and it's scrappy. It was scrappy by their terms, right? Being that there was no, digital at the time, it was all on film. It's probably one of the cheapest. Actually started the whole slasher craze, right? Of low budget independent films being made in that way.
There's no question that was a extremely important film. You look at things like Scream, which came a lot later, and it's all a parody of these classic movies. For me, some of my favorite films of all time. Back to the Future is there. Has to be. I love that film. Not just for the movie. I think there's a really very powerful message within it. And,
oh, yeah.
Groundhog Day, because the message is so profound.
Oh, yeah. Love Groundhog Day. Bill Murray.
Yeah. But a man who essentially becomes a different person. He keeps repeating the same day. Not till he changes, till he becomes a completely different person. And that's what's interesting about that film. And, but how many times do things like Halloween, Groundhog Day, Back to the Future, they are quoted in other films. The parodies of these movies are off the scale. So I get why, movies captivated me when I was a little boy. I used to go every Saturday, sit and watch at least 2 films, try and sneak into the 15s and 18s when I was about 12 and 15, respectively, and I used to try and sneak in, even if I couldn't get in, see if they saw me creeping in, because I just love film so much. I loved it. So, and it's not just the film. I loved the whole experience. Sitting there in the dark, the sound, everything, the smell.
It's more than people give it credit for. When you think about what we're losing in the theatrical space today, is that the experience has not grown to keep up with what we're doing. And I think that's the number one thing that is keeping our theaters from being profitable, being better off than they actually are, is because the experience has not changed, has not grown with the content and with the users of the people, the patrons of these theaters. So I totally have a whole plan in mind to update theaters sooner than later, hopefully.
I love that. So you obviously went into that industry. You have done some really incredible projects, some really exciting projects. And I was reading through, and I wondered if you could share, some of the things that you've worked on and created.
So I've worked on a lot of different projects. I started out doing reality TV. So I worked on, American Idol and X Factor and Hoarders and a couple of VH1 shows, started doing those things. And then I got into doing my own projects. And so I did a ton of shorts and Those are, your calling card films. And then I got known for doing that. And so then people would reach out to me to do their shorts and help them along that journey. So I've done, tons of other shorts that were done, here, but they did well overseas. And then we got into some features. So we did a feature I was a producer on called Son of a Preacher Man. And that was probably about 4 years ago. We did that. I came on board. I wrote a couple of films for a couple other people that had an idea, but they couldn't translate it into script format. So I've done that. Worked on some documentaries as well. So, just trying to fit in where people needed me to bridge the gap between whatever production they were in, and just trying to be, I guess, didn't want to be a jack of all trades, but I wanted to be a useful tool for folks that otherwise did not have access. And so I tried to make sure that whatever I did, I was adding to and not taking away from their productions. I recently did a film. Oh, go ahead.
No, please carry on.
I recently did a film called The Roost. That was my foray into ultra low budget. And so we shot that, and that had its own caveats and problems. Currently working on 2 more features and a series. So lots of projects, just behind the scenes stuff, lots of understanding the business for folks that don't understand the business. Most creatives don't. And so I kind of bridge that gap as well.
What I was going to say was you have helped a lot of people to get their projects made, bring things to reality. But what do you want? What's in your future that you want? That is your own vision, your own purpose.
I have quite a few. So I've got a faith-based horror film that I'm in pre-production on right now called The Shepherd's Debt. And so that's on the creative side. I've also got a feature-length film called Tattoo that's in pre-production. But creative stuff aside, I'm really excited about my company, 5 Element Studios, which is really trying to help bridge the gap between independent filmmakers and investors, understanding packaging and how to actually package their films to speak to investors. So I'm super excited about bringing that to market for folks, specifically for independent filmmakers, because I think that is the hardest thing that creatives deal with it on the independent space. I'd love to actually do some work in the in helping reassess our film tax incentives here in South Carolina as well, to give us more access to resources on the independent level within the state. So I'm a mixture of the creative side and the business side. I have tons of projects that I've written that are waiting, but I really want to champion the business growth as an independent, because it's just like startups. It's like tech startups or any other kind of startup business and startup endeavor, right? And people look at filmmaking as a hobby, and I want to start to change some of that on the independent space.
Yeah, I think my family had a very specific philosophy on the arts. I wanted to do that, and they never understood it. It was always a hobby. So many people within the creative industries that I've worked with have faced, these things where, the arts and entertainment industry, parts of the music industry, that's something you do as a hobby. It's something you kind of don't take as seriously as we'll use the word real job to be, a cliche kind of what I've faced. When you're going to do a real job, that's great. But I remember being in an interview and I explained an arts-based solution to the question that they asked, and they said, no, give me something from a real job. I just put on a musical, done, literally the budgeting, I'd done the casting, put it on at the time of COVID. It was a complete and utter nightmare to do, but no, that wasn't real job enough. So I get there's a lot of biases out there, but everything you do is about contributing. Even when you're talking about these ideas for yourself, they're all about helping someone else. It's all about trying to break the gaps, break the things for somebody else, which is, I find very interesting. You obviously are motivated by helping other people.
Yeah, I think the best way you can serve yourself is also to help someone else. Like, it's no fun to be at the top alone. Who wants to spend their life alone going through trials and tribulations to make something happen, and then when you get to the top, is like you look around and you're by yourself. I want to do what I want to do for my family, for my friends, but also to leave a mark. The legacy that I want to leave is someone that came and was thoughtful about how he left his footprints in the world. I guess that goes back to me being a Boy Scout. I was a Boy Scout for a long time, and I was this close to Eagle, and then I discovered girls, and so it was I started to split my time. But the principles that I took away from that is like, you leave a place better than you found it every single time. And so, one of the things that we would do is at a campsite, we always try to leave it better, leave no trace, right? And leave it better than you found it. And so that's kind of the philosophy that I have in this industry. I want to leave it better for the people coming behind me that are going to. There's a whole reason why I got a PhD was that I was saying the same things I'm saying now, but nobody would listen to me because they were like, oh, what do you know? Right. And so once I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the research. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to figure out how to get into this industry and understand the business so well that I'm undeniable in these rooms, and that I can give that information to someone else so they don't have to go and spend $500,000 on a degree and get this information. And that's the philosophy behind me teaching, because I teach this information. I try to be very giving about my time to a certain extent. I mean, obviously you have to charge at a certain point to make a living, but I really do try to give as much as possible to people, especially this information, because there's no need to gatekeep it. No matter what I do, no matter what they do, they'll never be me and I'll never be them. And the ideas that I have will never be exactly executed the way that if they execute it. So there's no need for me to feel like I got to hang on to this stuff. Why not share it and let's figure out how to grow together? And so that's just been my philosophy and everything. But there are people that will take advantage of that, and I'm still learning that.
Yeah, they will, but it seems a funny analogy. But I remember someone talking about giving to the homeless on the street, and they said, look, don't worry. You give because you want to. If you give to a charity, that's a genuine gift from you. How they use that is not your concern.
None of my business. And I said that's one of the same things people will say, are you going to give that guy $10 on the street? Like, he's just going to go buy alcohol. That's between him and God. He told me He was hungry. I gave him $10. Whatever he does with it, if he decides that alcohol is more important than food, that's none of my concern. And what people do with this information that I get, if you choose to use it or you choose to sit on it, what you do with it is none of my concern. But you can never say that no one helped you, no one tried to give you the information or that no one made you aware. And I think that that's a number one thing for me, is that you won't be able to say that Dr. Jones, you came across Dr. Jones, you had a question and he was gatekeeping the information, or he hindered you in a way that kept you from reaching your goal. That's never going to happen.
I get that. That's a beautiful philosophy, very nicely articulated. So thank you for that. That will strike home with a lot of people. Okay, a couple of closing questions. Number one, Dr. Jones. I mean, there's a very famous Dr. Jones who has something to do with the movie industry. I mean, do you ever get that? Surely someone's done,
all the time. Yeah. all the time, and I love it because it's also one of my favorites. It's like those Saturday morning movies, right? That those kinds of movies remind me like the Goonies, where the day was full of possibilities. And when you watch those kind of movies, it's like going on a miniature adventure. You're right there in the seat beside Dr. Jones. You're short round. You're right there. So I get it all the time. I can't do anything but smile because I would love to make those kind of movies, those adventure types of movies. Those are awesome too.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh, that's a good question. Best piece of advice I've ever been given. I think the best piece of advice that I've ever been given is, and this probably will sound counterintuitive to what we just talked about, but my grandmother told me, you wear your heart on your sleeves and everybody can see that you want to do well. You want them to do well. She said, but she would tell me, baby, there are people out there that will see that coming a mile away and want to take advantage of you. So guard your heart. And I think that I'm still learning to do that. I'm still learning to have a little, I don't want to say skepticism, but take things with a grain of salt. I'm a person that if I give you my word, I'm going to do something, I will move all I will say heaven and hell to make sure that I am doing what I said I would do. If I gave you my word, I'm going to be here, and something comes up, if that's something can any way possible that I can make sure I take care of it afterwards, I'm going to be there because I already dedicated the time to you. So I try my best to be a man of my word and not let people manipulate that.
That's great advice.
Guilt. Yeah.
What's a faith-based horror? I'm intrigued.
So a faith-based horror is a film that is kind of set up with religion as its confines. And so we are discussing the real conversation in the film I mentioned, which is called The Shepherd's Dead, is a conversation about faith and work, right? And what is a blessing and how do you know it's a blessing and not a curse? And so we are discussing the theological principles without preaching at people. We are discussing how do you know you have faith in something without being very preachy about it. So I want to entertain first, right? Because that's what you're there for. You're there to be entertained. But if there's a little nugget that I can put in there that when you are coming out of the theater, that you can have a conversation with the people that you went and saw the movie with. Well, I think about this about all my films. I want people to go and see them with their friends and then go out to dinner afterwards and us be the topic of conversation at that dinner of what it looked like, what it sounded like, but deeper, what did it make you feel? What is the real theme that we're talking about? And I think that great movies do that for people. Great movies entertain you on a level, but at the same time, it's something that you come away with that gnaws at you a little bit. And so when I'm trying to do like a faith-based horror film, I'm giving you a little bit of the horror that you're used to, but I'm also giving it to you in a way that makes you question and have a discussion about the overall theme. So that could be faith. In this particular one, we're talking about, what is faith and what is having faith, and how do you know if it's a blessing or a curse, and having a discussion about that, because sometimes people look at things as a curse that are actually blessings. And you don't know that it's a blessing until you have the full perspective of it. So until we can have those conversations, people are kind of, they don't get it. And then later on down the line, it's like the aha moment, the light bulb goes off. And so I want to approach everything I do with that sort of zeal. Faith-based, because there's a audience that folks who are quote unquote faith-based films don't necessarily shy away from horror films. They just haven't been given something that fits their taste. Right, because they're not going to go and see Evil Dead, right? Because they feel like, quote unquote, it's satanic, and it's gory, and they feel like it doesn't have the piece that's missing, which is the conversation about faith, right? But if you build something like that now has that as an underpinning, now we will get this audience to look at it as more of a thriller than a gory horror film, and they'd be willing to have the discussion. So that's why we're moving in that way. We're trying to open up a lane for folks.
I love that. That's really interesting. I'd love to see what you're doing. I look forward to, finding out more about that. I mean, Seven is a very interesting film, right? That's
absolutely.
That is a film that really makes you question a lot of things. That is something that
absolutely
that stayed with me. That stayed with me.
Yeah, and it could have easily been classified as a film that was rooted in faith, right? Because we're talking about the 7 deadly sins. Now, one of the other things that most of those faith-based films have is that there's allusion to nudity, but no nudity. There's allusion to maybe sex, but there's no sex. And so those are kind of things that also you have to keep in mind when making a film like that. We want you to enjoy the film. We want you to and not miss those pieces. Right. So if you think about 7, there's a scene where the gentleman has a knife on the end of a phallus. And like, so that might be a scene that we would cut as shock value, but that would be something that we would allude to instead of actually seeing on screen because of the audience it's intended for. And a lot of times, filmmakers don't think about that until after the fact, and I think about it in the beginning of who's this audience that we're going to be attracting to this particular film, because everything from the marketing down to the shot selection has to be crafted for that audience in particular, and not haphazardly. Yeah, it
sounds like you are making some incredible work. I mean, genuinely, it sounds incredibly exciting. How do people find out more about you, keep up with your projects, find your previous projects? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, they can connect with me on our website, which is www.fanatic.productions, FANATIK Productions.com. Be on the lookout for our 5 Elements Studios website, which is being developed now. And that's going to help with independent filmmakers that are looking for packaging help. Most of our films are on Tubi right now and Amazon Prime. So you can find some of those. You can hit me on IMDb. I'm on LinkedIn oftentimes talking about, so it's Dr. Thaddeus W. Jones Jr. on LinkedIn and Dr. Fanatic Pro or Fanatic Productions everywhere else. And always Fanatic with a K.
Always with a K. I think your grandmother would be incredibly proud of you. I really mean that.
Man, that makes me feel good. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that because I have a picture up on my mantle and I ask her a lot, are you proud? I hope you're proud of where I am now and where I'm going.
I think it's unquestionable to have the heart that you have, the drive, determination. You can never put the pieces together looking forward. Never. And you can only put them together when you look back. You've been through things that most people will never experience. You've been through things that people have experienced and not got through. They leave their marks, but you've learned, you've come through it, you've raised a family, you've supported a family, and you've got back up. Just like Rocky says, my favorite quote of all time, it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done. And you are
absolutely,
you are that person. So never doubt, she'd be absolutely, seriously proud of you. So it's been an honor, privilege to talk to you. Genuinely, your outlook. People are lucky to be in your class. I'd love to have taken your class. 100%.
Hey, man, I'd love to have you.
You keep doing what you're doing. Dream big, my friend. And, I hope we can keep in contact. And, yeah, if I can do anything, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Let's stay in touch.
100%. Have you got one last message you want to share with the world today? Anything that's on your mind?
I would tell anyone who is out there that is dreaming of making anything, don't let negativity and naysayers take you off your path. They don't see the vision because it wasn't given to them. It was given to you. So keep at it.
I love that. Dr. Thaddeus Jones, you are a legend. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. So, yeah, dream big. Big things are coming. I've no doubt about it. And thanks for being one of those people out there that genuinely cares about helping other people. Until we talk again, you take care of yourself.
You too.